Hello and welcome back to the third and final episode in the three-part series we have called Finance 101 for Tradies. This has been an episode where I've been joined by my co-host and TradyMate Pro panel expert, Bill Petrovski. This episode is called Being Financially Prepared, and it stems on from the previous episode, which was structuring your financial deals, and then the one before that, which was spending your money wisely. Probably best to go check those ones out first, guys, if you haven't yet heard them, because we do sort of build these in a way that they all lead into each other. Favor, if you can go over to iTunes and leave us a review, that would be fantastic. It does help us with our rankings. We don't ask for much, but that is something that we do ask for. Likewise, you can head across to the Facebook community where you can get hold of Bill and you can join in the awesome conversations there. So that's facebook.com/groups/the site shed. All right, that's all from me, guys. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I hope you enjoyed the series. If you have any follow-up questions, by all means, you can post them wherever you see this come through, and I will endeavor to get them answered for you. But that is a wrap. The Site Shed podcast is made possible because of Tradie Web Guys, creators of beautiful websites designed specifically for tradies and contractors. If you're tired of dealing with web designers that have no idea about your industry, then head across to tradiewebguys.com.au and reach out. Like many companies from all over the place, you'll be very glad you did.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the Site Shed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to the third and final episode of the series I'm conducting with my co-host, Bill Petrovski from Hall Chadwick Chartered Accountants. This series, we have been talking all things finance for trade business owners. In the first episode, we were talking about spending your money wisely. And in the second episode, the previous episode, we were talking about how to structure your finances. And now in this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about being prepared, financially prepared. And it will stem into the previous episode. We did talk a little bit about how to structure finances in the way of, figuring out what your costs are and all that kind of stuff. So I would encourage you to go back and check that one out. But in this episode, we're going to talk a little bit more depth about some of the those specific areas when it comes to being financially prepared for business owners. Bill, welcome back.
Thank you, Matt. And hello to all the listeners.
So, Bill, it's been a great couple of episodes, very informative. And in this one here, we're going to tie it all together with financial preparation, because it's probably, to be fair to say, that this would be probably the most relevant episode of all of them. We probably could have even done this one first, because unless you're prepared and unless you're planning things, stuff's very unlikely to go the way you want it to, right?
Yeah, that's right. I think, we've been through spending your money wisely. And that, you're right, probably reverse order here, spending your money wisely. The second one we did around structuring your finances will be based on, I guess, being prepared. And therefore, that's what we're talking about now, is how do we get prepared? What does that actually mean? And once we are prepared, what does that allow us to do? So, This is always a very important topic. And in any business owner's mind, you've got to have this up your sleeve in order to make decisions on the first and the second topic. So, it'll be an interesting one. It's good.
So I think being financially prepared is also something that although we may definitely associate with planning for what's coming, I think it's also pretty relevant to make sure that you're doing this on a regular basis. Like it's not like a set and forget scenario. And I've learned within my business, like if I'm not keeping on top of things on a weekly, monthly basis, it makes it that much harder to steer the ship in a different direction when you're 3 months down and you figure out that you're behind on figures. So I think having that preparation in place where you've got a more granular overview in bite-sized chunks and setting those goals and making that apparent, more regularly, revisiting it more regularly so you can make those minor adjustments, that kind of reduces the need for making those massive adjustments.
Yeah, Matt, it's I guess it's no secret in anything we do, right? I mean, the better prepared you are, the better you've planned for something.
Yeah, that's true.
Hopefully the better outcome you're going to get. So really, you do it once, you do it right, But that's not enough. It's the ongoing, okay, revisit it. What have I done? What am I preparing for? What have I planned, and have I hit that goal? Have I not? If I haven't, why didn't I? And if I need to do something different, what is it? But you're right, you got to constantly look at it and say, well, we set out on this plan, we set out on this budget, or whatever the case may be. We had some goals that we wanted to achieve, and you got to look at it intermittently throughout the period and make sure that, are we on track? And if we're not on track, what have we done wrong, or what do we need to change to make sure we get back on track? Or maybe we need to change our goals. And that's going to come back at, having that first plan in place and looking at it regularly to say, well, how do we make sure our business is ready to take a different tack? And, one of those things is really, if the shit hit the fan and we needed to take some action, are we capable of doing it? Can we change something quickly?
I've always struggled, Bill, with I won't say struggling with goal setting. Like, goal setting's always been fine, but turning the goals into, like, making it like a realistic achievement. And it's something that I've learned over the years. And once I've learned how to, don't get me wrong, it's not like I've mastered it, but certainly being able to tie, like a financial plan into an actionable list of tasks to do that you can break down and you can allocate to your team and you can do all that kind of stuff. Like, it made such a big difference. Just having that overview of the organization. So I'm keen to see what your experience is in regard to, when we're talking about being financially prepared, how that correlates to, the delivery of your product and the delivery of your service, and, the way that you handle your staff, your dispatching, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So as you said there, I think we like to break it down into various modules, and you probably got to look at a couple of things. One is, we've talked about it before, cash flow. So what does it look like today? What have I got in reserve in the tank to make sure I'm covered for how far down the track? So really that's the finance discussion, cash flow. Staff. So am I adequately resourced staffing-wise? Can I get the job done? If I won a new contract, or I've got this new contract or job, do I have enough manpower to make sure I can deliver on that? If not, what's my plan? The other thing is operations generally. So, making sure we've got the right suppliers, they're on board with us, they supply us regularly. We know that it's reliable, it's good product. Whoever else is part of, if we've got installers or we've got other subbies that we use as part of our process, that whole operation to make sure that we're doing what we said we would do in the right time frame. And then there's the big picture stuff, which is really about, what's the medium and long-term hold. So what do I want to achieve for that next 6 months, 12 months, or 2, 3, 5 year plan? And how do I get on the right path for that? So you've got to break it down to those little elements, and each element then has, what do we do for the next month? What do we do for the next 3 months? And continually reporting back on the big picture stuff. So,
when we're talking about cash flow and, cash reserve, obviously, okay, it's money in the bank, that's great. But cash flow, when we're talking about forecasting, and I've always had a problem with forecasting because I found like it's the difference between, a strategy and a goal a goal and a wish is typically a strategy. But like when you're trying to forecast cash flow, and I'm sure there's listeners that are out there that sort of thinking, okay, this is great. Like I want to make, $100,000 next month, but like that's a wish until you've got some sort of strategy behind it that can help you deliver that. Now, I'm not sure, Bill, is that really like the role of an accountant to sort of help them do that? Or is it more like where does that information, where does that help typically come from? Obviously you say, oh, okay, great. You want to make $100,000 a month. That's great. This is these are the metrics. You got to make sure that, this is what you need to pay your staff and all that kind of stuff. But then how does that correlate to actual deliverables?
Yeah. So I think there's always a starting point, and the starting point is looking at today.
Right.
You got to look at your numbers today, and I guess what you've done historically. It's always a good point as to, we've got to start here. And if we're starting here today, what do we have behind us knowledge-wise to tell us why that goal or that forecast is achievable? So if we have that knowledge today all that information up our sleeve, that's where I guess, from a numbers perspective, if we want to achieve and set out on a certain path and trying to achieve these goals, well, what numbers, what resources do we need in order to get that outcome? So, for example, if we said that example of $100,000 profit a month, well, we need to have $1 million a month of revenue. At the moment, what we know is maybe $700,000 a month of revenue. Okay, so now we need to get in maybe a sales coach, or we need to get in the marketing guy and say, well, who and what are we going to do to drive our new revenue? Who do we need to target? Now, I as an accountant can't say, well, we should target customer X, Y, and Z, or this area over here, or this geographical space, or do something online. But I know numbers-wise, well, we're never going to hit $100,000 profit a month unless we're doing $1 million a month of revenue.
Yeah.
So how do we get to $1 million of revenue? Okay, well, if we're short $300 a month, what are we going to do about that? Now let's bring in the next person who's going to help our business get on that right path. So really, that having that financial plan drives what is next needed in the business. And, we talked about it, I think, in an earlier cast as well, around bringing the right person at the right time, or the right specialist for that advice. Getting it wrong is going to cost you far more down the track. So get that right person in at that right time to say, well, this is what we're trying to achieve. How to achieve it? Okay, we need this person to come in and help us in the business.
We interrupt this podcast today to talk to you very quickly about Tradie Web Guy's content creation program. That program has been designed specifically for trade-based organizations as a way that you guys as trade business owners can start creating content that enables you to engage better with your customers and your potential customers. It will enable you to build trust and build rapport, because what you're doing is you're investing in educating them. Biggest problem that we see with our customers today is that they're not regularly updating their websites. And that's a problem because, first of all, the search engines are looking for that. And second of all, potential customers are also looking for it. Tradie Web Guy's content creation program has been specifically designed to help you get regular, relevant content on your website consistently every month. We know that it's hard when you're out there on the tools, and we know that sometimes you don't always have the time to be able to do these things yourself. So we're taking it off your hands for you. It's a service that we're offering for you guys. We want to make sure that you're getting this done because we know how important it is. Anyway, head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/content, fill in the form, and one of our representatives will come back to you. So if we go a little bit more micro now, and we talk to, I suppose, like make it a little bit more realistic to business out there, like people go, $100,000 a month, is that guy kidding? I'd be happy to make $10,000 a month, but like if we could break it down a little bit. So some of the things like from that I've noticed over the years, which have been important and fundamental to being financially prepared, have been things like implementing a cloud bookkeeping software, implementing a customer relationship management program that I can track leads and conversions and sales through, things like that. Things that give me a bit of an overview as to what's happening financially, and then what's happening in the lead up to basically fill that financial funnel, if you want to call it that.
Yep.
So when you go through the financial preparation process with your customers, what frameworks do you typically follow, in regard to that sort of thing?
Okay, so the framework, I guess, and probably a very good example, obviously relevant to us in terms of what accounting platform or software do you use to report and record, etc. I guess when you're going down that path, the framework will probably go down the path of is saying, one, firstly, can we save money? Are we spending money on things that is not efficient, not required, or something we can do better? So down the path of that software question, if we spent $50,000 on overhauling our back-end software and the whole way we record jobs, the whole way we account for them, our project management tools, and we might need to spend $50,000 up front to do it. But if that means we've got one less employee and that employee is costing us $70,000 a year, well, after year one, we're going to be $20,000 better off. But after year two, we're going to immediately have another extra $70,000 drop into our bottom line. Now, off the back of that, you've now got a system or a process in place that should theoretically be more scalable. So if our revenue went up, $10,000 a month, theoretically we should be able to do that without adding extra cost to it. So that $10,000 a month, if our margin is normally 40%, well, all of a sudden that $4,000 a month is immediately dropping to our bottom line profit. It's not getting eaten up by extra resource. So the two elements are, one, costs. Can we save costs by either doing something more efficiently or getting rid of something that's not essential to our business? That's one. And then two, I think the other side is always revenue, right? So how do we drive more revenue? How do we make that revenue more efficient, make it more productive, maybe increase our margin? Can we do that whole job better? And our existing revenue might be again, for all intents and purposes, $100,000 a month. But at that $100,000 a month, if we went to $150,000 a month, we don't want to just drop 10 grand extra to our bottom line. That 50 grand has to be scalable in a way where out of that 50, 20 grand a month is going to our bottom line. So it's going to help us get there quicker because we're scaling what our business looks like today compared to where we want it to look like in the future. So there's the two key elements: one, the cost side, and two, the revenue side. And that's where, again, from the cost side, I guess that's where we as accountants can certainly drill down, find inefficiencies and find ways to do things better. On the revenue side, it could be marketing, it could be spending money with a sales consultant or a salesperson, getting your tender documents right, whatever the case may be, and bringing in the right people at that level. Because if we spend X dollars on getting that right, it's going to deliver that new revenue. So they're the two key elements, I think.
There was an interesting question in the community a couple of years ago from one of our members, and he asked, when's the best time to bring somebody on? Is it in the planning stage or is it when you've got the money? And I had a couple of my colleagues on the show out of the US to co-host that episode. It was hilarious. But we basically, everyone came back with, these guys are both in finance over there as well. And they said effectively, you've got to make sure that, the money's there. You don't want to be going, employing, these overheads. It kind of ties back to what you said in the previous episode, I think, to that, that example with the guy who, went and bought all the joinery equipment without, actually having the joinery work. Like you want to make sure that you've got the money coming in, which can justify it, or at least I would say maybe, being that we're talking about preparation, you've got a clear plan on where that money's going to come from. Because that's another thing, isn't it? Like, okay, this is where I want to be and this is how I want to get there. But in order to get there, I need to have these people in place in order to deliver that. But then in order for me to put those people in place, I've got to have the money to fund it. So it's kind of like the chicken or the egg, right?
Yeah, that's right. And it's always an interesting one, I guess, in terms of discussion. Now, I guess hence why when we talk about being financially ready and having that plan in place is something that you don't just do once and it's stuck in the back drawer and away we go. It's something that you do it and you got to constantly revisit it. And constantly revisiting means, okay, well, am I in a position now to do what I want to do? If I'm not, okay, well, maybe I've got to extend that plan out a little bit. But in the meantime, as we all know, when we run our business, we're doing 100 things all at the same time. So while I'm doing the plan, I'm also trying to get that new revenue. I'm also thinking about that new machine. I'm also telling the bank why they should lend me the money. And all these things got to be brought together. So the better organised you are, the better you've planned all that out. And being financially ready means when the right time is there and you say, oh, Mr. Banker, we've just won this new contract and we need to buy that $300,000 piece of machinery to deliver on that, they're going to say, okay, I need these 10 things from you. Okay, well, I've got them. They're ready. And here they are today. Let's make a decision quickly. So it's being ready to do all those things at once. And, in the perfect world, you want to have it all lined up where you've got the revenue, you can get it lined up in 3 months' time after the bank's given me the money to go and get that equipment. But we all know in business, these things have to all happen, in short spaces of time, and we've got to make things happen based on what we anticipate. So really, we've got to look at always being financially ready, having the plan in place and having the documentation to do all those things. And that comes back to one of the other things that I haven't probably spoken about too much is compliance. Do we have all our taxes up to date? Do we have all our accounting records up to date? Are they accurate? Do they paint the picture that we need to present to the financier that says we can afford to do this? And therefore, the more we can demonstrate that we are ready and we've been thinking about this and planning it for the last 6 months. Well, Mr. Bank, whoever you are, look how long we've been working on it. We've got all our I's dotted and all our T's crossed, and this we're going to make a really easy decision for you because everything that we've given you here that we have ready because we've been working on it for months demonstrates to you why you should lend us that money.
So when we're talking about, I suppose, an overview, I honestly, the most valuable thing for me in the business is spending a couple of hours a week looking over finances, reconciling accounts, and just making sure that everything's tracking in the way that it should be. So I can't recommend that enough to people. Just find the time, make the time. Don't even make it optional. Just do it and get it done. Because
I'll just comment on that because I think the hardest part is doing it first. Once you do it first, the ongoing ongoing management of the information or looking at it regularly should become somewhat easier. So in my business, we've got over 200 staff, and I know exactly what's going out the door every single week before it's happening, because I know what my wage bills are, I know what my rents are, I know what my generally my trade creditors are. So I know what I need to collect today in order to make sure that next week and for the next 90 days, I'm going to be covered, because I know exactly where my costs are. And I know that because I did all the hard work at the beginning, get it right, get it in a format that's understandable and something that's going to be presented to me each week or each month in a way that I want to see it. And once that hard work is done up front, it's just a matter of then getting that information, glancing at it. Are we on track? Yes, we are. Great. If we're not on track, what do we need to change? And that's the part where the hard work is at the beginning. The ongoing work should be substantially easier as you go. And then you get more comfortable with it because you know exactly what's happening each week to week.
Yeah, well, that makes sense, I suppose. You just once you're in the groove, it kind of you're basically just following a rhythm. But I find I find as well, even just going back and checking metrics which may not seem, what most people might look at are things that I necessarily don't look at, like things like, group engagement, or things like, how many people have downloaded, things from the website, and like little things like that, little metrics, and trying to get a gauge on how that then reflects and ties back into profits and sales and all that kind of thing. I find that stuff, well, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I actually kind of find that stuff really interesting these days. Because you can kind of, once you understand that, you can pretty much dictate it. You can think, oh, okay, well this is how, if I do this, this, and this, then I know in the past it's done this. So if I do that again, then chances are it will do it again. You can kind of like lay a bit of a roadmap for yourself.
Yeah, so you've got your business levers there, is what I guess you're ultimately talking about. What are those KPIs, or what are those levers that we can influence? And if we influence this one lever, what impact is that going to have on the remainder of my business, and what's that going to deliver financially? Yeah. And again, that's all the things where, there's so much data out there these days. You've got to pick through what's important to you to make that decision. What's important to you is going to be different to what's important to the bank that they want to see if they're considering lending you some money. It's going to be different to the customer that you're submitting a tender to that wants to see that you can deliver on this outcome that you say you can in that time frame. And information and all that is readily available, and I'm sure it's probably at your fingertips, but at any one point in time, you've got to filter through all the shit information and say, well, right now I just need this information, but the banks want that information, and the customer's going to want to see that in order to be able to, make a decision that I'm financially viable or that my business is going in the right direction. So, as business owners, we're looking at these things and we've got to understand them all. And hopefully at the right time, you are ready because you've done all the hard work in the planning up front and the goal setting, and you got your team on board and they're all doing the right thing and they're assessing the same information like you are, knowing that, to achieve this goal, that's what we need to do. And this is the information that we have to get there.
Yeah, brilliant. All right, mate. Well, look, I think that pretty much wraps that episode up. What do you think? You got anything else you want to add?
No, I think we've covered it in amongst all those three casts. I think we've covered a lot. Hopefully it's accounting and tax we've made a little bit more exciting for the listeners out there. We started out in the first cast, but look, at the end of the day, I think happy to answer questions, happy to help, and ultimately reach out either online on one of the platforms or happy to get face to face, and that's where we can add some real value.
So for the listeners out there, Bill is in the community. So if you've got any questions, by all means, jump in there and ping them on him. hallchadwick.com.au is the website. You can find Bill at Bill Petrovski, Petrovski on Twitter. He's on LinkedIn as well. And I'll post some links to those handles within the show notes. So if you want to... if you don't want to pull the car over at a screaming halt and write that stuff down, you don't have to, because it will be in the show notes. So, Bill, thank you once again for your time. It has been awesome. We look forward to having you as a part of the community. And for the listeners out there, if you have any comments or follow-up questions for Bill, the community is probably the best place to get it. Otherwise, if you see this come across any of your social media channels, this podcast, or if you see it come through in an email from us or anything like that, by all means, just reply and I will endeavour to get Bill back on there to answer your questions for you. So, Bill, on behalf of everyone, thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you. It's been a pleasure being part of the cast and ongoing involvement in the community, and look forward to hopefully helping a lot of businesses out there.
You've done a grand job of making an unsexy topic very sexy, Bill.
Thank you.
All right, it's a wrap. Thank you for listening to another episode of Toolbox Talks. If you're liking what you hear, then you can head across to the siteshed.com where you can join our community by signing up to our Toolbox Talks. You'll get sent a weekly notification, which is basically a highlight of everything that we've spoken about during that week, along with any other industry news that may be relevant or specific to the trades. If you're enjoying the show, you can head across to iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, where you can leave us a review. That would be fantastic, and all the reviews get read out in the show. Likewise, if you have any friends or colleagues that you think would benefit from the show and the episodes that we create, then please go ahead and share it with them.